So these parameters are different from the thing you can, so they are called different parameters. So now we will study different type of operating system. One type of operating system is an interactive system, another type of operating system is a batch operating system. An interactive system, there are multiple processes and multiple users, and multiple users are interacting with the operating system. So this is an interactive system. In an interactive system, the most important thing in the operating system, the most important thing is the response time. The user should get fast response time. Because let's assume if you are running a PC, and you are running some program on a PC, and there are multiple programs, and you click on some program, so the most important thing is your response time. When you click on the program, so at that time, that active program should be given the highest priority. Because response time is very important in an interactive operating system. Now we have a batch operating system. In a batch operating system, response time is not important, and in this case, it executes all programs in a batch. Let's say there are multiple processes. It first executes the first program, then execute the second program, and then the third program. And in this case, it has less overhead. But in this case, the response time is huge. Now, in batch operating system is typically used in the banking system. Let's assume if the bank closes all the transaction at 5 p.m. and gives the batch, so it will do some kind of optimization at the end, and it will run all these optimization program in the night. And when the next day the people comes in, every data is ready. So in the batch system, it executes all the tasks one after one. Their response time is not important. Response time is not important. Now let's assume if you have some like in the banking. Now let's assume if it's in one branch, okay. One branch is doing some kind of a transaction. So it is actually storing all the data in the local servers. In the local server. And is doing all these things in the local servers. National Bank one is doing the local server in Islamabad, another is doing the local server in Islamabad, the third is local server in Islamabad, and there are two different servers in Islamabad. But sometimes you need to keep a backup of that data in multiple locations, maybe in Karachi also as well. So actually the copying of that important data from the Islamabad server to the Karachi server maybe is done during the night. So in that case, response time is not important. Sometimes you may receive some message from the bank. Okay, the ATM services will not be available from 2 to 3 p.m. Why? They are doing this kind of upgradation. They are doing this kind of, and typically they do the upgradation in the night, so that the users are affected the least. So in that kind of a thing, there is a batch kind of thing. You do some kind of optimization or something. You may have noticed that, let's assume that if you have a hard disk and hard disk is defragmented and you fragment it, the data one page is stored here, one page is stored here, and one page is stored here. If you want to access the data, your response time is. So actually, if you do the defragmentation tool, and if let's assume if your one page is here, one page is here, one page is here, and one page is here, so in defragmentation it collocates all the special pages in the same location or adjacent location. So that the response time is improved. So this kind of tools they typically run in background, and that kind of background operation is typically a batch. They are running in batches, and their response time is not important. But in an interactive operating system, when there are multiple applications and they are running on the same PC or on the same server, there the response time is very much high. Now let's assume you click on www.yahoo.com, and not you are accessing the data from yahoo.com, but a lot of people are accessing the data from Yahoo. Even if you click on Google, www.google.com, so how many people are accessing the server of Google? Maybe in Pakistan, millions and millions of people are accessing the data from the server. There the response time is critical or not? It's very critical. If you will not get the data or you will not get the page loaded in the same time, it will be disastrous even for the Google. So their response time is important in that context. So in an interactive operating system, so user wants fast response time in the batch. They are typically the programs, the tasks are running in batch. Now if you look at here, now we have different programs. Now we have program P1, P2, P3 and P4. P1 is initiated at time T0. P1 is initiated at time T0. Okay. So now you say P1 is initiated at time, and there are no other programs, only program P1. Okay? So P1 is initiated time 0. What should be the time slot that we need to give this to this program? Time slot of 12
minutes.
So actually if you look at this P1, so we can divide it into 12 plus 12, 24
6.
plus 6. In this case we assume that this program is not waiting for any resource. Maybe if I ask this question in the exam, maybe I can also put this in the scenario. But in this simplistic program we say, okay, now we are running this program P2. How many times slot we need?
Plus 6.
And this one?
12 plus 12 plus 4. 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12.
So these are the time slots that need to be given to this program. Now we start with program P1. Time is 0, but this program is in the new state. P1 is in the new state. So what should we do now? Memory allocation. How much time is allocated for memory allocation? 3 units.
3 units.
MAT, memory allocation time for program P1 is 3 units.
ठीक है सर.
Now this is 3. This is only single program. Sorry, time slot should be given to this program.
ठीक है सर.
So then when its time slot is given, so how much time slot is spent? Time slots. Okay, which program? P1.
P1.
3 plus 12?
15.
15. But during this time, program P2 is now also pushed.
T is equal to 10.
P2 is coming at time
10.
10. When P2 is coming at time 10, and actually what should our requirement? So we should, whenever new program is created, when new program is created, so we should give it priority. We should give priority. In order to reduce the response time of that newly created program, here's after high priority. Now this is our assumption. In this assumption, now we have P2, P1 is running.
Yes sir.
We need to switch to P2, but P2 we need a switching time. Switching time of how many units?
2 units.
Switching time of 2 units, what will be the new time?
17.
17. Now we should give priority to which program? P2, because P2 is coming at 10.
10.
Okay, so which program should be given the time slot?
P2.
P2, how many units?
12.
12 units. If we add 17 plus 12,
29.
29. 29.
Yes sir.
सर हमने इसके P2 का वो मेमोरी एलोकेशन टाइम भी तो करना है.
Yes, very good. Very good, very good. That's so we need to do the memory allocation for P2. And 3 time units then is 20. Then we should execute this P2 for 12 time units. What's the time now? 32.
Yes sir.
But in the meanwhile, which program is popped up?
P3.
Okay, now P3 is, let's assume, coming at 28. Let's assume it's coming at 28. Okay, just for the sake of simplicity. So P3 is coming here. We should give priority to P3. What should we do now? Switching time is important. 2 time units. 34.
Yes sir.
What should we do now?
Memory allocation time.
Memory allocation time for what?
P3.
P3 then
3 units.
3 units.
37.
37. Any other program is coming? No problem.
No. No sir.
Okay. Then yes, we should give the time to P3. How many time units? 12?
20 units.
49.
Yes,
But
sir.
during this time,
P4.
then switching time.
2 units.
How many units? 2 units. 51. Now we are starting with 51. From 51, what should we do now?
मेमोरी एलोकेशन टाइम P4.
Memory allocation time P4.
Yes.
P4 running, how many units? 12. 66? Okay. 66. Now all the programs are active. Now all the P1 is also there, P2 is also there, P3 is also there, and P4 is also there. 66. Switching time. Now you are doing switching time. 2 units. 68. Then which program? P1.
P1.
Because P1. 25 units. 80. Okay. P2. P1 requires 1. अच्छा दो दूसरा तो नहीं है. Okay, this will go on. Then switching time, switching time, switching time. It requires second interval is given. Then P2, P3, P4.
Yes.
Then again P1. Okay, but I'm not going to go into details in this. You can fill these things. Now in P1, we have given a time slot here of 12. We have given a time slot of 12 here. We need to give a time slot of 6 units, not 12 units.
सर मेमोरी लोकेशन टाइम से पहले दबा दिया जाएगा.
Yes. Now in this scenario, we have assumed. Now in this scenario, we have assumed that there is only static allocation and it's only one time required. I am not considering the case of the memory allocation time at runtime. Maybe if I ask this question in exam, we say, okay, maybe this program is during the third time slot does a memory allocation and that requires this time units. That's the second scenario. Okay. Now in this scenario, we assume that now we have time slot of 6. Okay. Then P1, then P2 switching time, then P1 switching P2, P3, then P4 switching time, and then P1. So we have time slot of 12 plus 12 plus 6, 30, and actually 6 units will be given. When 6 units is given,
उसके बाद ही complete हो जाएगा.
when it's complete, we don't need switching time. We need to deallocate the memory. So memory deallocation. Because we don't need the switching time. Okay? Memory deallocation time, and also yes, switching time is also required. Because in switching time, it's not only in switching time is required to. Okay, now we can divide the switching time into 2 times. It contains 2 time units. To store the context of. To store the context of what? The program that is interacted, and to load the context of the program
that is ready.
that is changed to running state.
Yes,
So
sir.
actually maybe in this switching time will be less. Because to store the context you don't need. Because you are already deallocating the memory. You are also deallocating the memory. Now let's assume maybe in the switching time I will say, okay, the time for loading the context is this, the time for reloading the content is this. You may also divide, you may also do this in, consider this. You may also consider this thing. Okay?
Yes.
So now, in the switching time, it consists of 2 time components. One is the component. Which component? To store the context of the program that is interacted, and to load the context of the program that is. Okay. Now if you look at this time interval. Okay. Now P1 only P1 is not there. Okay. Now if you look at this time interval. P3. So in this case, during this time interval, P3 is what? Running. P3 is running. What about P1?
P1 is in ready state.
P1 is in ready state. What about P2?
Ready.
What about P4?
So P4 यहाँ ready.
It's very tricky.
Ready में आ गया. New में आया.
It's new. So if you look at only this time interval, after this time interval, P3 is running, P1 is ready, P2 is ready, but P4 is new. And when P4 is clicked, it will generate an interrupt to the operating system, and operating system does an interrupt system, and there will be some mechanism it will put it in the ready state. Okay, now it's in the. There is some kind of mechanism by the operating system, and that's done internally hardware with the combination with hardware. So you know already. So actually, during this state, if you look at this state, P2 is running. What about P1?
Ready.
Ready? After this state, P3 is not not here. But after this time, P3 is new. After this time, P3 is now in the new state. At this time, P3 is now changed from the new state to which state? Running state. So all these things you need to consider. And if you remember the previous diagram, the diagram, the state diagram, how many states were there? Now if you look at here, memory deallocation time. What about P1? MDAT. Huh? MDAT. Memory deallocation time. What is the state of the program P1?
Halt.
Halted. At this state, P1 is halted. P1 is
Halted.
halted. P1 is halted. P2, P3 and P4 are ready.
Ready. Yes, sir.
And after this switching time, after this time, even P1 does not exist at all.
Yes, sir.
Because when the memory is relocated,
तो एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं कर रहा,
is not
खत्म हो गया सर.
executed. So actually, and if you look at the queues, when the memory is deallocated, not only the memory is deallocated for the program, but the memory is also deallocated in the operating system. The process ID is destroyed and it is removed from all the queues. Which queues? It is removed from the running queue.
Yes, sir.
It is removed from the new queue. It is removed from the halted queue. It is removed from the ready queue. And all of the process states for that program is then destroyed. Okay?
Yes.
So this is the mechanism how does operating system. Now if you look at here, if you're using a batch operating system, it is very simple. The same example. In a batch operating system, P1 is first come first in. So what we need to do? Memory allocation time of what? P1, how many time units?
3 units.
3 units? Now we will completely execute the program.
30.
How many units?
30.
30. P1. What's the next program?
सर पहले deallocation होगी उसके बाद
P1, memory deallocation time. We don't need to switch because we are not loading the context. Memory deallocation time, how many units?
1 unit.
1 unit. Then
Allocation. P2 की allocation.
memory allocation time of P2,
P2.
how much time?
3
3 units. And what is the running time of program P2?
54.
54. Then allocation and deallocation, then complete
P4.
P2 and
P3.
Now if you compare this time interval and this time interval, if you look at the overall execution time of all the programs,
Batch
which one is better? Batch.
Batch का.
But if you look from the response time of the program P4
ये
will
होगा.
not start until
P1, P2 and
P2
P3 is
and P3.
halted.
So what is the time? 30 plus 54. What is the response time? At least 30 plus 54 plus 28. One 112. It comes at 60. And we also have memory deallocations. At least it has a delay of more than 50 units. It has a delay of
सर 60 units से ज़्यादा क्योंकि हम
yes. I also memory allocation and deallocation. If you consider all this, it's more than 50. But at least more than 50. More than 50 is means it may be 60, it may be 70. I not calculated, but it's more than 50. But in this case, it has. If you look at there are only 4 programs. The maximum delay can be 12 multiplied by 3, 36.
Yes, sir.
And if I have given a very small example, in which the execution time is very small, but if the execution time is very large, let's assume 1060. In that case, the overhead will be even more because the number of intervals in which we are dividing the program will be more. When the number of intervals and the number of time slot that is allocated to each program is more, so there will be more overhead in terms of switching time and
Memory allocation or
not
deallocation.
memory allocation, in switching time. Because here there is no switching time. Because you are not switching from one program to another.
Yes,
You are
sir.
allocated for
Yes,
whole
sir.
program, deallocated in whole program. This is an example of a batch operating system. In a batch operating system is done is done in the scenario when you are doing some kind of optimizations, back-end optimization, not front-end optimization. These are the back-end optimization. So it's more suitable for the back-end optimization in which your overall execution time is better. So batch operating system is better in terms of execution time, the overall execution time, the sum of all execution time. And interactive operating system is better in terms of what?
Response
Interactive operating system is better in terms of
response time.
So there are different scenarios we need to consider when we are considering an operating system. Okay, so I am not completed the whole. Maybe I ask this question in exam. Maybe I ask this question in exam. So you need to follow the complete setup. Okay, you should consider mere replication time, mere replication time, and I may also change the specification. That what is the time required to load the context? What is the time required to store the context? Maybe I also say that okay, during time slot number 5 of program P2, there is a runtime memory allocation. So then structurally you should need to consider different kind of scenarios and how the operating system will respond to these scenarios. Any question?